If that ain't incriminating, I don't know what is. What's Russ the Suss, LIEnette, and John CROOK's ultimate goal, the end goal, the plan for Otter Creek? There's no doubt Russ the Suss told LIEnette and CROOK, in my opinion, that he was not going to be at the meeting, therefore there would be no meeting, and therefore they did not show up to the meeting. I seriously doubt they actually took the words of the Levy County Sheriff's Office, who told them they would be arrested by a supervisor if they showed up. I don't think they took that to heart. I think they knew, just like they knew last month, as LIEnette was seen and talked to on the road North Otter Creek with a 4-year-old in a stroller. Now some go, 4-year-old in a stroller, that's not normal. And there are others going, 4-year-old in a stroller, that's normal. Regardless of whether you think a 4-year-old in a stroller is normal or not, the aspect of her saying she's paranoid, she's paralyzed to her property, and yet she's up and down the road. Actually, when she's stating there's hundreds, no thousands of vehicles every day going by just to film them. And then she's having conversations, sharing that she's had previous conversations with Russell, which is illegal, knowing that she was not going to be at the actual meeting because Russ the Suss wasn't going to be there. I also find it interesting that Russ the Suss wouldn't be there to lie for them. Remember, the last meeting he lied to the deputies, stating that they had, what were the words, the phrase there, George? They had business. Business. They had business. Business means absolutely nothing when you have a civil protection order that says you can't be anywhere near us within 500 feet. No matter if you have business or no business, you have no business being anywhere near us. Also, keep in mind, Russ the Suss's granddaughter and her boyfriend shows up when Russ the Suss is going to be there. And they've started to record as well. And it's interesting that they weren't at the meeting either. In other words, his little groupies, nowhere to be found except for Don the Con. Many people want to know, since LIEnette and CROOK weren't at town hall, did they skip town running from all the lawsuits? Well, they were actually spotted. She was spotted yesterday in Chiefland with the child in the vehicle. She gets out of the vehicle. The child is left in the vehicle, which should be cared for by Children's Services, right? She goes into the rug store while the child is still in the vehicle. And this has all been taken pictures of. The vehicle is running. The child is in the vehicle. LIEnette leaves the vehicle. The child in the vehicle. And LIEnette's in the rug store. If that ain't incriminating, I don't know what is. Darlene Aaron wants to know, okay, if Don and Russ's terms are over, why can't the newly elected members just move forward? And that is true. Don's term is over, but since he ran for one of the two-year seats, he's just going to continue on. So his term ends, but yet he's going to enter another 2-year term. So he'll be part of moving forward. Russell was given the 1-year term. He's done. He's gone. Now, in next year's election, if he files Form 6, and if the Ethics Committee does not completely and totally stop him, if he isn't jailed and imprisoned for all that he's done, immoral, unethical, and illegal, then he could run again as well for another 2-year seat. But at least for 1 year, Russ the Suss is done in Otter Creek politics. So why can't they move forward? Well, to move forward in this venue, you have to actually have a quorum being a majority. Out of 5 would be 3, out of 4 would be 3, out of 3 would be 2. But 2 is generally looked upon as, no, that's not enough members. You've got to have a quorum to actually start the meeting so that you can swear in the new members and they could be seated. Now, the question has been arose in the aspect of, okay, well, if that's true, how did the first council members ever get seated? If that's the way it has to be. Okay, come on, let's not be ridiculous here, okay? If they're going to start a town and a council, there's going to be a point of starting where there are no council members. They're just going to be seated. I mean, let's use some common sense here, all right? Okay, I think we're through that now. So once the entire council that still remains is there, which is now Don, Zim, and Russ is gone. So now you have Don and Zim. Really, in all reality, as of right now, the only council member that truly is still serving in a term because the others haven't been seated yet is Zim. So now he's the quorum, 1 of 1. And he has a couple different options of what he can do moving forward. So it'd be Zim and the lawyer. Megan will the lawyer will swear in the 4 new coming members, which is Don the Con. It would also be Not Vermont. It would also be Carl and then Joe. And then with Zim, who has another year on his term, we'll have 5 members yet again on the town council. Ruth Kringle says, I don't even understand. Why would you show up to a meeting that's been canceled? Referring to Don 2 meetings ago. Is he trying to make more trouble? He's an idiot. Well, I have to agree with you. He is absolutely incompetent. And frankly, I think he's fried most of his brains on... I think you get where I'm going with that. So why would he show up? Well, there's a couple different reasons. Number one, he is giving reports back to Russ the Suss, which is extremely interesting because if you just go back 2 years in our videos, even a year ago, Don was fighting Russ and Mary on everything. And Mary and Russ actually locked Don out of a town hall meeting illegally. Illegally! And so every issue Don has had with Madam Mayor, every issue Don has had with Vice Mayor Zim, every issue Don has had in town hall, he's had with Russ the Suss as well. So now it just becomes an issue of, all right, the enemy of my enemy is now my friend. So he's got to team himself with Russ the Suss, or he has nobody. He's just out here by himself, floating on and maybe even on the island. No, you know what? He's been voted off the island unless he tries to team up with the other bad guy. So I think Don the Con is showing up to give reports, number one, back to Russ the Suss, okay? Number two, to give reports back to Shark, a nobody in the aspect of any part of this story who desperately wants to be a somebody. And maybe we'll give her an award for being the stinkiest, nastiest,
jokeless.
Putrid shark in a pair of underwear that's ever existed. Maybe someday she will get the recognition she so much desires. But today's not that day.
For the baby talk?
Well, the cuckoo, you know, I heard she actually picks her nose and eats her boogers as well. That's what's going around on the internet. I haven't seen it, but that is what's going around on the internet. And so Don is there to give reports to Russ the Suss and Shark. Don is there to, you know, potentially have his claim to fame. I mean, the reality is he loves being on camera. You put a camera in his face and ask him a question, and without hesitation, he's going to give you a clip that you can use over and over and over.
Those one-liners.
And over again. I mean, take a look at these.
The bills and the paper. I'll bet you $50 it'll pass any test you put it through.
They want to make the motion that we unincorporate.
Don't you find it odd, and I don't use that term nearly enough, that Don the Con is the one that makes a motion to unincorporate the town of Otter Creek. As a matter of fact, Gail Lamb actually wanted to unincorporate as well. Now, there are those out there, the opposing parties, that state that Jeremy Hales runs Otter Creek. Nothing happens in Otter Creek without him. Actually, there's nothing that happens with me.
A town council would have never happened if you have that much power. They give you too much credit for having too much power.
I'm not sure what kind of credit they give me, but here's the craziness of it. the fools out there that say, number one, that I run this town. The only thing I run is the things within my sphere of influence and my life. I don't want any part of town council at all. But when they do corrupt things and they steal from people, I'm going to call it for what it is. Absolutely. They pushed and they pushed and they pushed. And then they got shoved back and now they want to cry. Goo-hoo, boo-hoo. Wait, hold a second.
Mini blah blah.
That sounds like Shart. These fools are all in the same bushel together. So here's the other funny thing. You know, there are individuals that don't live in Otter Creek who have lied and claimed that they lived in Otter Creek as they've been filming. And yet they lived in unincorporated areas of Florida. And the supporters of those individuals don't have anything to say about their areas being unincorporated. Nope, no problem there. Yep, where they live, it's unincorporated. Not a problem. But if Otter Creek unincorporates, the world is going to end. The world's not going to end, and neither will Otter Creek. Otter Creek will still be Otter Creek. It'll be the town of Otter Creek. It'll just be unincorporated Otter Creek.
You mean it won't be Tube
which
Town?
Which means that, listen, Tube Town is a town within a town. Which means that there will be no monthly meetings and the county takes care of everything. Taxes go down for all the residents and services for the residents go up based on the county. So here's the crazy part in the aspect of people that are out there that saying, Jeremy, he started all of this. He's doing all of this just because he wants content for YouTube. Now hold a second. I am the one person that they're also complaining that wants to unincorporate Otter Creek. So there is no more content for YouTube. If there is no meeting, there is no circus. If there is no meeting, there's no more fighting. If there is no meeting, there's nobody there filming. And yet I'm the one that's pushing for that.
Mary actually invited you to come to town council because she charged you more than double. She said, well, bring it up to the town council at the next meeting.
To be clear, I have no control over whether this town unincorporates. It's obvious it's the smartest thing for this town to do for the people. And it's obvious all the benefits are there for the people. Lower taxes, more services from the county. I have no control over it. And yet those who still say that I want it unincorporated, but then they complain that I film and I created this circus. Same thing goes with LIEnette and CROOK. They sit there and complain, oh, he's making all of these fights and all this. He's doing it for content for YouTube. And yet I'm the one that's put $150,000 thus far into legal fees to keep them as far away from us as possible. 500 feet, so there would never, ever be anything to film.
Don't forget the cease and desist.
Oh my goodness. Debunking, it just makes me feel so good. We don't want to film Town Hall. We need to film Town Hall for accountability, for protection. We don't want to film LIEnette and CROOK. We need to film LIEnette and CROOK for accountability and protection. Town Hall and the town of Otter Creek unincorporates, nothing more to film. LIEnette and CROOK actually adhere to the civil protection order and follow the law, nothing more to film. That goalie asked a very good question. So do you have a mayor or is the seat still vacant? So the reality is the seat is still vacant. We don't have a mayor. The way that a mayor gets chosen here in Otter Creek is we have 5 council member seats. Of those 5 individuals, they are all voted on by the legally voting residents of Otter Creek. Then those 5 actually choose one to be the mayor. So these 5 members chose Madam Mayor Therese. Madam Mayor Therese, she resigned because of Form 6. That left Zim, Russ, and Don. Now, of those 3, they could choose a new mayor, but Vice Mayor Zim was still the vice mayor, appointed by Madam Mayor Therese. So officially, he's still the vice mayor. Whenever a mayor resigns, there is no mayor, they then choose again a new mayor. So right now, we don't have a mayor. Yet again, proving this town does not need a mayor. This town doesn't need to be incorporated to be a town and to function. As a matter of fact, it's the aspect that it is incorporated that attributes to all the dysfunction. If it was unincorporated, lots of the dysfunction would pass away to the wayside. But what will happen is once Don is seated, Laura Mott is seated, Carl is seated, Joe is seated, and Zim stays for another year, those 5 will then choose of one of them to be the mayor. Now, I think the option is pretty obvious because Don the Con has been very verbal that he does not want to be the mayor. And Laura Mott has been the mayor, and then she stepped down to run for commissioner of the county and failed miserably. And so I seriously doubt anybody's going to vote her back in. And frankly, if they do, she's already got some legal issues because she's done illegal things under her tenure as mayor that I can still sue for. And if I find that she is in that position, I probably will move forward and sue for. And so you've got Carl and Zim and Joe. Carl and Zim and Joe. I mean, it kind of just makes sense. Zim's already in the heat, in the thick of it all, that most likely, I'm just guessing, Zim would become the mayor. Now, I don't doubt whatsoever Donna's going to fight it tooth and nail. Not for Mott is going to fight it tooth and nail as well. But that's probably what's going to happen unless Russ the Suss has another big, huge surprise for all of us. Debbie Vosberg says, so what Russ the Suss, Don the Con, and the other groupies in that group, what they're doing, would that be considered insurrection, trying to overthrow town government? Just asking. So, Debbie, that is up to the authorities to actually decide. Now, what typically happens in a small town like this, it's never really actually exposed or seen. Now, the planet, not the world, the planet is watching, including Judge Grudge. And so now the light has been shown on the corruption. So could there be possible charges, insurrection, obstruction? There could be, but it's not for us to decide. What I do is just literally show the reality of what's happening in this place and then give my opinion on it. My opinion on it is charges should have already came. But I also know justice is extremely slow. And it seems especially slow in Florida. Letty Lynn says, so what happens now? This is the 3rd meeting in a row that's a wash. New council members, when do they get seated? Wait until next month, like last year? And this is an extremely important point that Letty brings up. Russ trying to stop people that he didn't want on the board last year. Remember, seating of the board members got pushed and pushed and pushed. Russ the Suss closed down Town Hall for over 2.5 months, locked it. Nobody was allowed in. And then Letty goes on to say, I hope the ethics committee takes him to the bank and then off to jail. So you are correct. Russ the Suss played all these games last year in getting Madam Mayor in as the mayor. And then when he couldn't fight it anymore, he just went, go with it. If anybody recalls the go with it. Man, there are so many t-shirts that we could make based off of Russ the Suss and Don the Con and their ridiculousness and their sayings. But a couple things could happen with this new council. So for an emergency meeting, I believe you need 24 hours to conduct an emergency meeting based on sunshine laws here in Florida. Okay. And by the way, they have to follow sunshine laws. So if they do an emergency meeting, they could hold that meeting within 24 hours, have all the incoming members and seat them there. They just have to coordinate that with the lawyer so that she could swear them in. They could also do a special meeting, which would be 7 days. They have to give notification, and then 7 days after that notification, there would be a special meeting. Now, George and I have not seen any notifications hung up, but to be frank, neither of us have even gone to the post office or town hall to even check the board. So I don't know that either of those things have happened. Or you can go to the May meeting, which, I mean, honestly, why not just wait? I mean, really, what is...
They didn't get sworn in until May last year. Anyway.
Last year it didn't happen until May anyway. So again, proving... Why do I keep scratching my eyebrow? Why does it itch? I don't know.
Sand gnats?
It could be sand gnats. Florida sand gnats. They bite like gators. They seriously do.
The no-see-ums are no joke.
They are no joke at all. But usually they come out around 5:30 and they attack me. Just like the town members have, Russ the Suss and Mary and, those individuals have attacked us because we're Northerners and they've stolen from us and all of those things. So I think the reality is, again, it proves this town does not need to be incorporated. I get it. There's a historic incorporation. It happened. And at that time, it was probably needed. But further down the road, the town is dead. The town has to be revitalized somehow. You have to draw in families. You have to draw in people instead of keep pushing them out because you have rugs. Keep pushing them out because you don't want to clean up your property. Keep pushing them out because you don't want change. Everything changes. You can't fight change. It will happen. But part of change is also death. And as of right now, Otter Creek's almost there. It's almost dead. Radio Nest actually touches base on this and says, after the date when they were supposed to take office, the new council members have to be seated without a quorum. And I think he's referring to when they first incorporated Otter Creek, which was not that long ago. Okay, it was in the 60s. And how did the first members ever get seated? Well, they incorporated, they seated the members, they had a town charter. Otherwise, the town is dead. And here's the funny part. Those that want to oppose What the Hales, Jeremy and George. And by the way, those who say they're in favor of LIEnette and CROOK, those who say they're in favor of Russ the Suss and Don the Con, they're not in favor of those individuals. They're just so strongly emotionally opposed to Jeremy Hales and George. That's what it amounts to. They just are so opposed to me and her that they want to claim that they're for somebody, and they're not. What it is they're against. And those same individuals are saying, if you unincorporate Otter Creek, it's going to die. It already is. It's there. If you don't unincorporate it, they're going to continue to fight. They're going to continue the circus. They're going to continue the insanity. And what's going to happen? More trash, more garbage, more death of a tiny town. Or what we can do is actually unincorporate, stop all the fighting, stop all the filming, and people can do what they want to do with their pieces of property under the law. Now, the funny thing is, many people think, oh, this is America, land of the free. You have some freedoms. For example, my freedom of speech that has illegally been taken away from me by Judge Craig DeThomasis. But it doesn't give you freedom to do whatever you want. Democracy is not what we are in. We live in a republic. I pledge allegiance to the United States. Wait, how's that go, George? United States. I pledge allegiance to the United States of America and to
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. And
she does know it. That was a test. She does know it. Okay, so she's not a foreigner. She grew up here. She just proved it. To the republic, not a democracy. In a true democracy, you can do whatever you want. That means everybody can do whatever they want. To you, to your property. They can come over to your property right now and steal it from you and say, it's mine. Mm-hmm. It's democracy. I can do whatever I want. No, we live in a republic. There are guidelines. There is order. There are rules called laws. And so you can do whatever you want on your property as long as you follow the law. That's all you got to do. And one of the things they love to say down here is the law. We call it.
We call the law.
We can say, hey, I'm going to call the police. Down here they go,
we called the
law.
Well, law is short for law enforcement.
Which I actually love saying down here.
We say
it's
it now.
Fun. It's just like overseas in the UK they go, we're going to hospital instead of to the hospital. We're going to hospital.
Or we're going to make shopping.
Yes. I have no idea where she came up with that one, but apparently we're making shopping. Kathy Stewart says, I wonder if Laura Mott will actually step down. And then that would trigger a special election where people would put in a letter of interest and would be reviewed and then appointed. And that's how Russ the Suss plans to get back on town council. All right, so these are some of the thoughts that George and I have talked about at length. What is Russ's ultimate goal? You have to remember, this is the way it used to be. LIEnette put in her letter of interest. This has been brought up in court. LIEnette saying she's paralyzed to her property. She can't go anywhere. She's in complete and total fear. All lies. Complete and pathological, habitual lies. She then puts in her letter of interest.
She filed a motion to the judge wanting legal advice.
Judge, can I run on town council? Why didn't the judge just say, by the way, we know why, it was Judge Constantine Craig DeThomasis. Why didn't he just say, you just told me you're paralyzed to your property. Why would you be running for town council? I mean, where's this judge?
He coddled her.
It's insanity. It's absolute insanity. And I do believe this judge will be removed from the bench forever, for good. Like the insanity of what he has done.
He's a great professor.
I think he could be a good teacher, but he is a horrific
Not a good judge. Yeah.
Horrific judge. And there'll be more to come on that because he's not only been doing this to us, we now have information from other individuals that have been before him as a judge. He's currently doing this to others as well. But we'll get back to that. So would Laura Mott then be put in that position, used as a puppet and a pawn, as she has been before by Russ the Suss? Because, frankly, I don't think she can think for herself and figure it out. So Russ the Suss, I don't think he's that bright either, but he's manipulative enough to put her in and her to say, now I'm going to step down. And then Russ go, well, I want in. Well, you can't do a letter of interest anymore.
If you don't do emails.
Form 6. So laws changed. Form 6 is the pre-qualifier. Okay. Form 6 is the pre-qualifier for you to sit on a town council. And until laws change, and they may never, then that's the route they have to go. So for there to be a special appointment, somebody has to be pre-approved by the government by filing Form 6. Form 6 says you have to list everything you own that's over $1,000. If I had to fill out Form 6, let's just walk for a second. Let's take a peek.
Okay.
If I had to fill out Form 6, when this was in incredible, impeccable condition, this moose head would be $4,000 to $5,000, okay? So this would have to be on Form 6, all right? This fireplace, which came from a storage unit that we have never used, but we actually put together.
Use it for shelves.
That's over $1,000 right there. I would have to put this on Form 6. This is roughly about $300, so I can keep that off Form 6. Let's look at
the
other
gator.
things.
What about the gator and the Hulk?
The gator has to go on Form 6.
Your vehicle.
The tractor has to go on Form 6. The truck has to go on Form 6. George's car does not go on Form 6. By the way, those individuals who constantly say, Jeremy said I own this, and how dare you say you own that? It's you both own that. No. George, do I own your car?
You sure don't.
Okay. Well, how dare you, George? George, do I own your house?
Nope.
No, I don't. George owns what she owns. I own what I own. Let's take a look at a few other things. So that's a good thing because I would not be posting anything that George owns if I actually ran, which I'm not going to. This is all the change we have found in storage units for the past few years we've been in Florida. It's not very much. And we know we find a lot of change in storage units. That could be, do you think there's $1,000 in there?
Not yet.
Okay. If we got to $1,000 though, we would have to put that on Form 6 and literally everything else in our life. That's intrusion. That is, in my personal opinion, a violation of privacy because all of that then gets posted online. Now, I understand if you're higher up in government, it's a check and balance system. It's to make sure you're not stealing. But I don't feel comfortable letting people in Otter Creek knowing all the rug abuse that happens here, all the rug addicts, all the rug dealers, knowing everything that I own and it all being on the internet and anybody around the planet being able to access that. That's not a comfort that I have at all, especially when I travel back and forth. Now, the one thing I have going for me is everybody knows I have cameras absolutely everywhere. Anybody that tries something, they're immediately going to be arrested and caught.
If it's challenged, you get fined.
If you list anything incorrectly, it could be up to $20,000 fine. I like Fred the Moose. You know what? He didn't cost me $20,000. He didn't cost me all that much at all because I bought him in a storage unit. What was that? Just under $2,000? And then we sold everything, made the money back. So Fred the Moose is really free for me.
You do like taking risks, but not that kind of risk.
They ain't going to take that kind of risk. So the things that you see in here, I've sold items from storage units so that they didn't cost me anything. I don't want to be fined, and I don't want to share everything that I have that's worth over $1,000. And so you have to have Form 6 in to actually share an interest to be appointed in the first place. That's how Russ the Suss can't get in. He did not fill out Form 6. Will he? Time's gonna tell. Anik Crastrol says, since there's so much corruption in Otter Creek, is it possible for somebody in the county to come in and seat the new members? I'm sorry, I don't know how all of this works. Well, Janet, here's the crazy part. There's corruption in Otter Creek, no doubt, but there's corruption in Levy County as well. I mean, I am reading online about people calling out the Levy County corruption. And 2 of those members are Meeks. Remember, Suss is not actual Russ's last name. Even though when asked in court, what's the former mayor's last name? And I said, Suss, Russ the Suss, which I thought was hilarious. It's Meeks. And his son is on the Levy County Commissioners. His cousin is on the Levy County Commissioners. Now, from what I hear, John Meeks seems to be an upstanding guy. From what I hear, Rock Meeks, who is actual Russ Meeks' son, is the opposite. Not one of the good guys and a part of this corruption. So to say, hey, there's corruption in Otter Creek, can we have a higher level come in and take care of the corruption? Well, all you do is have everything tied in the family. And that's one of the weird things in this area. You talk to anybody, they're all related to Russ the Suss. One way or another. Oh yeah, third cousin, through marriage. Everybody is related. It's concerning. And so once you are in that good old boy system, we're all related. You scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. Everybody's covering up everything for everyone. And so here's the real question. Let me ask this question. Since I'm against Russ the Suss, and there are people who are against me, therefore they state they are for Russ the Suss. Since I'm against Don the Con, and there are people who are against me, so they say they're for the hero. That's no hero, that's a 0. Don the Con. Since I'm against Not for Mott, I'm just curious, do you think the people who are in opposition of me, if I changed my stance and I said I'm for Laura Mott, do you think they would be against Laura Mott? Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm for Vice Mayor Zim. Do you think if I changed my stance and I said I'm against Vice Mayor Zim, they would say they're for Vice Mayor Zim?
Oh, yeah.
Maybe I should start playing some psychological games with these psychotic individuals. Diane Bean says, can the newly elected members sue Otter Creek? And I think she's asking that out of the aspect of not being seated because Russ the Suss isn't showing up or because meetings aren't moving forward. Emergencies have happened with Zim being in the emergency room. And so I think the answer is yes, anybody can sue anybody for anything. That's the way the law system works. But to actually do that, you have to have 2 things. Number one, okay, you have to have one thing. The first thing is optional, as you've seen with LIEnette and CROOK. You got to have somebody to represent you legally, okay? And to say, hey, I'm going to sue Otter Creek because I haven't been seated, I think is a little bit out there, and they're going to go, this is ridiculous. Which is what's happened with LIEnette and CROOK. No lawyer, they keep saying, no lawyer wants to touch this because he's a YouTuber. No lawyer wants to touch it because they're freaking insane. They're out of their minds, and the lawyers aren't ever going to get paid. That's why LIEnette and CROOK can't get any lawyers to touch this. Okay. So you typically would want legal representation to walk you through the legal system. That is by far the smartest thing that you could possibly do. And to get a lawyer to actually take that and say, yep, let's sue Otter Creek because we haven't been seated, they would just go, Why would you spend money on suing them when you could just wait 3 weeks and you're going to be seated at the next meeting anyway? It makes no sense to spend thousands of dollars on lawyers when you can wait days and you'll be seated. The other thing that you need in a lawsuit is a judge that actually finds merit in the lawsuit. And so as you can even see with LIEnette and CROOK, LIEnette trying to get an injunction, it was denied 1 time, 2 times, 3 times. No evidence. There's never been any evidence. And finally he goes, okay, I'll give you a hearing. No evidence to this day has still been shown, nor have I had any word of defense on my behalf $150,000 later that I could have used for so many other things. But we're using to save a child, to save a town, and to save animals. So can there be a lawsuit? Well, anybody can file a lawsuit at any time. You've got to have legal representation, or if you're dumb enough to represent yourself like LIEnette and CROOK, then you've got to have an actual judge who finds merit and doesn't throw the suit out of the court. I don't think there's any merit in this type of lawsuit. Just like when the judge denied an injunction for LIEnette against her own daughter. No merit. This woman is insane. Ancient One says, did the council members get new chairs? I think she's referring to the lazy boy that we brought to town hall. We brought that specifically for Carl, who had a horrible accident on a motorcycle. Now, days before, when Carl got released from the ICU and from the hospital, myself, George, and Deanna went to go and visit with Carl and see how he was doing. And he talked to us about his pain, what he could do, what he couldn't do. And specifically, I had mentioned, I was like, Carl, you cannot go to town hall meeting. And he was adamant. There was nothing that was going to hold him back from going to town hall meeting. And with all of his broken bones, he's got staples up and down his body, over 30. He's got road rash all over his body. If you know anything about road rash, that's extremely painful. Ugh. Not to mention,
they had to comb it out with the.
We can't even retell those stories. I'm going to get too queasy. So the road rash, broken ribs in the front and the back. Every time he breathes, the pain. If you know anything about broken ribs, road rash, they had to reconstruct his collarbone. The list goes on and on. What I thought was the best thing we could do, because he shared with us, he said, this is my comfort. What I'm doing is I'm just sitting in my chair.
I think he sleeps in his chair.
And he's staying there, and he goes, I just try not to move. And my first thought was, hey, can I come by? And I asked him, can I grab your chair? I'll take it to town hall with you, and that way you'll be comfortable. And he was like, no. And then we thought, wait, we got a lazy boy on the stage at the schoolhouse, and the double doors, we don't even have to take it apart. We'll just take it right out, throw it in the back of the truck, and the double doors at town hall, we'll just take it right in. And when Carl gets to town hall, he can feel as if he's comfortable, as if he's at home. And then we thought he was going to actually get sworn in that day. So we put him on the corner, and then we thought we could just slide his chair up to the table on the concrete floor. That way he would be comfortable. Now, could this start a new trend in Otter Creek where all the council members get lazy boys? Yeah, I doubt it. Unless What the Hales finds 4 more and we put them around the table. Jada wants to know, how are the bills being paid? Don the Con makes such a production about all of the bills. It's not on the agenda. It is on the agenda, but there hasn't been a vote to pay the bills in months. Again, Jada, this just proves there's no need to be incorporated. There's no need for a town council. The bills are being paid because they're normal average bills. They already earlier in the year said, hey, we can go ahead and just pay all the normal bills. It's any outstanding, unusual bills. So let's say a pump breaks down at the water plant, and the pump is going to be 10 grand. They can't just go out and write a 10 grand check and go and say, okay, we're going to get a new pump. They have to bring that before the council, and that has to be voted upon. But Madam Mayor put in place any normal reoccurring bill. So that would be electric. That would be water. The water is good in Otter Creek. Yes, I'm trying to sound like Russell Meeks. The water's real good here in Otter Creek. Why does he always say it's odor? Odor.
It's his
It's
accent.
his odor. It's his odor. He smells like armpits. Dirty, nasty armpits and man butt crack. That's what Russ the Suss smells like. That's what his face looks like all the time. An Otter Creek. In Otter Creek. So normal reoccurring bills, those can be paid, and that's all there is. There's just normal reoccurring bills. You've got your utilities, things along those lines. So Belinda's taking care of all that. It's all in good hands. I can't stress this enough. There's no need for a town council. There's no need to be incorporated. The healthiest, the smartest thing for this tiny town is to unincorporate, let their taxes go down, let the services from the county go up, and clean this mess up.